35T is done with a couple of Tamiya and Dragon figures, but what I want to talk about is accurizing, taking an older kit. Darius, that's one of his sidelines, and taking an older kit. This 35T is an example, and this Tamiya kit, advertised as an early production M4, is another case in point. Taking an older kit and adding some detail without spending a lot of money, accurizing some things, and hopefully coming out with something that's going to be an improved product. The Tamiya Shermans, they all share the same hull. 1987 vintage, and it's got some problems with it. This particular kit, the upper hull and turret are I think it's 1995, 1990s. And the detail in a lot of areas is very basic and needs some help. And you need to add some things that aren't there and then correct some other things. This is an actual M4, and if you go and, as you should with anything that you're building, do some research, one of the first things you find hitting the internet is that M4 is used as a generic term. So you're looking for pictures of M4s. Well, there's an actual M4 that is a model of the Sherman tank. It's an M4. It's not an M4A1, M4A2, 3, or onward. It's an M4. But generically, they'll call anything, it's an M4 Sherman. Well, no, it's not an M4, it's an M4A1. That gets into esoteric detail that we really don't need to worry about. But when you start doing some research on this particular vehicle, this particular model of Sherman, you come to realize, well, Tamiya says it's an early model M4, but it's not really. It's either a mid-production M4 or a remanufactured early model M4. Now, I won't go into all the reasons for that. The applique armor, the extra armor that was welded to the sides of the hull and one place on the turret is one of the giveaways to that. And this being done to prevent, well, the extra armor was over the ammo bins, and then there was a thin spot on the right front of the turret that needed extra protection. So this is actually a remanufactured M4 if it's an early model at all. One of the first things, well, also another caution I want to give you about using internet sources. Of course, I went over a lot of, anyone who does World War II armor goes over a lot of fuzzy black and white photos, trying to interpret what you're seeing as far as detail. What is this thing? Where did it really go? What did it really look like? So I've done that. The internet can be a good source for research. If you can find pictures of museum vehicles, sometimes you can get some good close-ups. You have to be careful with that, because there'll be some equipment missing from these vehicles. Sometimes things have been added by well-meaning museum personnel that shouldn't be on the vehicle. Fenders crafted out of whatever sheet metal and added to the vehicle, things like that. So anyway, and another thing you can find on the internet also that can be very helpful, usually you can peruse reviews of the kit from people who built them. Some reviews are good, some not so good, some of the things you'll read or need to be taken with a grain of salt. Last couple of models I built, though, I've been able to find some pretty helpful lists of tweaks that need to be done to the kit to correct some items, and I was able to find that with this and employ some of those. Now, one of the first things, I will not be, this is extra stowage. You do get a lot of extra goodies with this Tamiya kit, and that's one of the things Shermans were famous for. They were laden with all kinds of extra stowage. bedrolls, packs, ammo cans, fuel cans, you name it. But I will not be joining the upper and lower hulls until I can install the driver and what was sometimes called the assistant driver. He was the bow machine gunner. Because they have to go in from up under here, so I'm going to have to paint them, mask them, make a little tissue sock to cover their heads and torsos, and then do the rest of my painting. One of the first things I wanted to correct was the rear idlers on this thing, because the Tamiya kit, 1990s vintage, there's no detail on the insides of these, and this is going to be very plain to see. So you got to do something about that. I took some Dragon idlers and a Dremel tool and started grinding a big enough hole to use the poly caps that Tamiya uses to hold these things on. Another thing that I did with the suspension here, I bought some of the Ming bolt sets, shaved a bunch of those off, and there are bolts that need to be added in several places on the suspension bogies. I did it all on the front side. I did not bother with the back side since they're not going to be seen. It wasn't uncommon on Shermans to see two or three different types of road wheels. So I've got one press steel wheel, and the rest of these are open spoked wheels. And the press steel wheel is in the middle of the suspension for a good reason, because it's got no detail to its backside, so it's not going to be visible there. Another bad feature with the press steel wheels, you do get a set of those in this kit, is there's a heck of a seam down the middle of the thing. So if you look, you can see green putty there. So you got a lot to do there. The spoked wheels, there was hardly any cleanup needed for those. I have done a little pre-painting here because I realized I'm going to have to put a star on the bow of this thing. And once I get the hole in place, that's going to be fairly difficult to do, since I've got this board here, which was commonly put in place across the bow of a Sherman so that you could pile up a bunch of junk on the whole front. And around here I scrounged through until I found, well, it's one of the things I found on the internet. Somebody suggested where you could get some toe shackles of the type that were seen on early model Shermans, and I thought to myself, hey, I've got an old Tamiya M3 Lee lying around that I'm never going to build, so that's where those came from. And on the back here, the engine access doors. One of the things you've got to correct on this is every one of the grab irons or handles for hatches is a solid molded piece. So I went through other kits and found enough grab irons to correct all of that. So there are spares from a Dragon kit, a Dragon M4A4, from an Academy M4A3A, A3E8, an Italieri M4A1, and a Tamiya M3 Lee involved in all this. Moving on to the upper hull, one of the first things I noticed was, well, Tamiya, in their infinite wisdom, decided that you needed sand shields on this, which are the sheet metal fenders that would wrap around the upper hull. Sand shields were fine and useful where you have sand in the desert, where there's nothing to run into. You're not going to tear them up, you're not going to foul the tracks or do other damage running into things. They were rarely ever seen on any Shermans in Europe. Next biggest task is closing in the open sponsons. It was very common in the 80s, 90s for armored vehicles to have open sponsons because they figure, well, nobody's ever going to look under there and see. But if you want to put a figure in a hatch, in the turret, in the hull, you're going to see daylight. I'm still going to have to do something about that once I join the hull, upper and lower hulls. which is why I don't have the engine deck finished yet, because I'm going to have to lay some strips over those edges to make sure there's not even a little seam of daylight to be seen. Other than that, I have added paper straps for the tools, because the 1980s, 1990 molding, the retaining devices for the tools are very rudimentary. They give you a little strip and that's it. So I've tried to simulate buckles and straps, which is the normal method for securing tools on Sherman. I've added retaining chains in places where they were used. These fuel caps and the caps for engine oil and water all had pins. You remove the pin, lift up the cap, and there was a retaining chain to keep you from losing that pin. It goes back in place once the cap's back there. I've already mentioned the grab irons. The only place, for some strange reason, that Tamiya gives you actual periscopes for your crew is where they're not going to be seen. For the turret, you insert them from the inside, and there's an actual periscope in there that no one's ever going to see. Everywhere else where you need them, commander's hatch, if it's going to be open, drivers and assistant drivers hatches, all you have is the open box type bracket that the periscope fit in, no periscope. So from my vast store of spares from Academy and Dragon, I scrounged some periscopes, did a little surgery, added periscope here. I just decided, since the Tamiya hatches for the driver and assistant driver were so rudimentary, to just replace those entirely. These are Dragon products. Added grab irons from an Italieri kit, and then I've added brush guards. Scrounged also from Dragon and Academy kits. And these are the guards that were wire guards that went over the periscopes to keep it from damaging them driving through woods, brush, etc. One couple of other features on the whole front. I have no idea what this little strip here that I've done in white styrene is, but it's on every Sherman, so now it's on mine. I have added a horn scrounged from the M3 Lee kit. Thanks to the internet, I saw someone mention, well, you get one from that kit. So, well, I've got one, I'll find it and put it on there. Added a guard for it made of strip styrene. Wired it. This was one of those instances where I'm looking through photos and, okay, where does the wire go? Where does it end? I found on the internet some mention of how it should go, and then I compared that to photos, and I think I got that fairly accurate. And then I've got these little posts. I have, in order to obviate the need for painting the headlamps, they were often removed to keep from damaging them. And if you're not going to be doing any driving at night, what the heck? So I added the caps, and then these had little posts that were welded to the brush guards for the headlights. And when the headlights were in place, that cap was on a retaining chain, and you screw it into the top of those little posts. So I've added that detail. This thing comes with a blade sight for the commander, so he can roughly line up the tank on a target. Later they added a different type of sight, and it's not uncommon to see both on these Shermans, and which involves sighting through a hole on an upright piece and lining it up with another opening. And I added that. I've added a 30 millimeter or 30 caliber gun barrel for the coaxial on the turret. That's a Dragon product, already pre-drilled. Otherwise, I had to drill out all the machine gun barrels, the Tamiya ones, and even this one. This is an Academy product for the 50 caliber that's going to go on the turret. It's not the greatest, but it beats what Tamiya offers in their kit by a mile. I've added a little detail, a couple of retaining chains, and believe it or not, it had to have its barrel drilled out. I bought the Academy U.S. machine gun kit mainly for the ammunition boxes, but the machine guns are passable, and it's going to be a big improvement over what Tamiya gives you as far as the 50 caliber. Other than that, the figures, using Dragon figures, and if you want to compare one of these Dragon figures to what Tamiya gives you, you can see why. Yeah,
I got this kid.
Yeah. There's not much there, and I've added a little detail to these guys too, but they're much better detailed than what you get with Tamiya. But this is just an example of, well, do your research. Go to the internet, look through pictures, read all you can. Don't believe everything you see and read. But without going out and spending a lot of money on photo etch, aftermarket stuff, you can, if you've got a good spares box, you can take an old kit and do some decent work with it. And I think it's going to come out and look fairly decent once I get it done.
Well, Rick, I got a question.
Okay.
Okay, so you outlined this process here, and so far what you said doesn't sound too much different than building any other kit.
Yeah.
So what's the difference?
Well,
You just have more parts?
You get all the fun of scrounging through your spares and trying to figure out, okay, what do I have that I can use? And I think a lot of the fun of building is trying to take something that's and make it better. A lot of the kits you buy now, they don't leave much for you to do.
Well, and a lot of people don't go to they'll just build it right out of the bag, whatever it is, and not go to that out of the box, and not go to any trouble on it.
Yeah, and you do learn a lot. I've learned some things about Shermans, and I've built Shermans before. I've learned some things this go around about Shermans that I didn't know before. So, like, what's this gizmo here, or where does this go, or how did it go? What did it really look like? And also, I've already spent the money for the kits that I'm scrounging parts of. The Academy kit I used, I built, but it's got a ton of extra parts to it. And I'm still using periscopes, brush guards, etc. The M4A4, I had 2 of those, so I've had a lot of parts left from it. I've got several old Italieri M4A1s lying around that I'm not going to build, that I'm pulling parts off of. So to me, it's enjoyable taking something that's mediocre and making it look better. And like I said, I've already spent the money, so I didn't have to go to a lot of extra costs to do this.
Kind of the difference is what I found, that T62 I did a couple years ago, that was the old Tamiya kit. And I saw a project in a book, and what I did is I modified that Tamiya kit, and I scratch built a significant amount of parts for it, all the bar armor and all that kind of stuff. And I think the finished product compares to some of the trumpeter stuff that's coming out now at a price of about 1/3 the cost. Yeah. Because I think I paid $19 for the Tamiya kit a long time ago. And about $5 worth of plastic and wire and paint. And I would actually compared it. I mean, it won an award over a lot of the newer kits.
And I wouldn't be surprised if there are guys who are newer to armor modeling who won't model anything that's not the latest and greatest.
Oh, absolutely.
But one thing I've wondered though is, does that really mean that you're skilled if you just know how to stick on photo etch parts? Now, this didn't take a vast amount of skill. I took pre-made parts for the most part, but then, you know, there's a little engineering that had to go into doing
drilled out
something.
that machine gun. You did some work.
Well, and, you know, I did, and you have to, one of the things with the Dragon hatches, the exterior detail is better than Tamiya, but there's no interior detail at all because they don't intend them to be open. So I did the head pads out of putty, and I added a couple of circular plates, and then because these periscopes rotated, and then the periscopes scrounged from the kit.
I just find it really rewarding. I did a Frankenstein Sherman
Yeah, you feel like you've done
a while
something.
back, and that thing, I had more fun with that than I did with just a. You probably had more fun with this taxi.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're freed up. You're not
Oh,
constrained by
right,
what I gotta do the picture just like that.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I can freeze you up a little bit to do some stuff that you normally would constrain yourself because the instructions don't allow you to do it.
And part of the fun is figuring out, okay, this is not right on this, or it's not even there. How am I going to do it? What am I going to use?